I think specifically within a workplace, you know, being well and specifically getting the support is so important. You know, a lot of the work that I've done and the work that I've kind of championed is all to do with kids, with young people, you know, when they're at school and stuff like that. But there is a massive want now for businesses to do more in terms of supporting their employees, which is nice. You know, a lot of the conversations that I have are with, you know, big businesses and places that want to understand now, you know, how do we deal with an employee that's going through something or a situation that's happened within the workplace or anything like that. And I think it's refreshing and it's nice. You know, it is important because I think businesses are realizing, okay, we're not actually doing enough. You know, well, they're doing enough to the masses. It looks like they're ticking a box, but realistically, internally, are they doing it? Well-being for me is all about kind of, I guess, respecting yourself and looking after yourself. And at times that's really hard. I would never really put financial in there, but that's the unfortunate reality as to what, you know, the world that we live in. I'd certainly say in a more male-skewed way, I'd say the word financial comes into play massively. I think as you know, speaking from a male perspective, and you know, it's kind of one of the only perspectives I know, obviously, men put huge pressure on themselves to be safe financially. Some, you know, some take it too far, but I think well-being is again looking after yourself, and it's hard to not make it a personal thing for me. Do you know what I mean? It's like you should as a business be looking out for the well-being of others, but at the end of the day, they're going to have to want to reciprocate that. For me, it's you know, it is, you know, keeping in constant contact with my friends, being able to be honest with them, I guess, about how I'm feeling, and sometimes that's hard, but sometimes you know you have to do it, and sometimes there's conversations that you can only have with one friend, and you let the other friend just sit for a minute because you know you've got a better connection with them. But I've always been quite lucky, like, to be honest, with that honesty level. I've never kind of felt embarrassed to name my flaws or anything like that. And I think, to be honest, that was the shocking thing. I made a documentary in March, and from that, the most shocking thing was how people were so shocked at me taking an antidepressant on telly. Because to me, that's normal, that's every day, and all of my friends know that. If I forget my tablets, I've got spare tablets at work. Everyone at work knows that. Do you know what I mean? It's just, but I think because of the shock that, you know, that this was on TV and someone was kind of admitting to it was quite a big thing for a lot of guys. And I think I'm lucky in that I have that honesty, so I can check myself when I need to be checked. I think now it's reached a level where it's happened so much over my life. I've had really dark moments in my life where it's been super hard, and I haven't wanted to speak to anyone, and I've let that get to me, and I've let that get to a point where it felt like there's kind of no return. So, and when that happens, you feel so lost, and you just feel like the only way I can describe it to someone, I described it to someone the other day, when I get myself in such a rut, it's like someone sentencing you to 30 years in prison or life in prison, because you're just like, this is forever. It feels like it's going to last forever in your head, and you kind of feel imprisoned by your brain. And I just think that being able to change that, and being able to talk to your friends and have that close group of mates that are there to just, you know, check on you, or just to reset you, just to say, look, once you've spoken about this problem, we can move on from it. You've got me here to help you out. It's so important. So yeah, I've got 2 or 3 mates that I do that with all the time. I think someone's job has a huge influence on their own well-being, because we all work different hours, different pressures being put on us. You know, for me, it's a pressure to constantly be happy, and it's a constant pressure to be funny or whatever. And I think that plays into my head a lot. You know, like there are days where I don't feel like that, and it's really hard to pick myself up. And I know that the pressure is I've got to be like that. You know, some people it's it's deadlines, and it's you know, it is money, and it's financial based, or it's pressures from, you know, bosses or whatever, and that can feel genuinely anxiety inducing. You know, I think in my job it's less so anxiety and more kind of like an existentialism thing where I don't know who I am at times. But, you know, I feel for the people that go through that, and anxiety becomes a huge, you know, thing when it comes to pressure. You know, I've got mates that work in finance, real estate, you know, loads of different places, but they all have different types of pressures and loads of different factors that can go into it, whether it not be their working hours or how big of a team they work in. Do you know what I mean? If you've got a big team, you can talk to different people. You've constantly got someone else there, maybe you vibe with someone else. But now, if it's a small team, you're working from home, sometimes you can go a week without talking to anyone physically. So I think that is something that's really important that needs to be kind of thought about. The biggest thing for me when it comes to employers is it never makes sense that if an employee walked into the room or into a meeting and had a huge gash on the side of their face and it was bleeding, instantly the employer would be like, get the paramedics in here right away, send you home, like, are you okay, sending gifts or flowers, come back to work whenever you need, like, you know, we just want to make sure you're all right, because they can physically see it. I think there's this weird stigma and almost like, I don't want to say it, it's kind of like disbelief in someone if they say that scar is basically there but on the inside, or they've gone through a traumatic event, etc. And the thing that businesses need to do more is recognize those moments and also be there for them in that moment, but make sure that they have the right aftercare, because aftercare is 90% of the job. You know what I mean? It's like when someone goes to the gym, they say, oh, you know, if you want to look like, you know, this body, then it's 20% done in the actual gym and it's 80% done on your diet. Do you know what I mean? It's like that is literally what it is for people that are struggling. You have your intervention where the company can step in and say, look, we want to help you out, we want to get you better. And then there's the aftercare, and that aftercare is as important, if not more. Just over a year ago, I lost my best friend to suicide, and he took his own life. And to be honest, again, unfortunately it's such a reoccurring thing where if I had lined up 20 of my friends, I would have probably put him last to take their own life. And this is someone that I'm with every single day, at work and out of work, holidays, the lot, right? Dinner with my family, all that type of stuff. And it's someone that you know, I spoke to constantly about stuff like this. You know, I spoke to Joe about, you know, about mental health. He knew my struggles with it. You know, he knew that there had been moments where I'd thought about and gone through at length, thought about taking my own life. You know, he knew about these things, and yet that still happened under what I feel like is my watch as a friend, because we do have responsibility as a friend to be there. You know, keeping in mind though that obviously I know that, you know, what the action he's taken is solely his decision. I still fully believe that had I just had one conversation with him, it could have changed. But I think anyone in that situation feels like that, and it's okay to feel, you know, a level of guilt or whatever, because it's all just a grieving process. So what I ended up doing was obviously, having lived through that moment and losing someone so close to you to something that you would never expect from them, I felt like I was given a sheet of paper to say, look, you know, that thing that everyone says how a depressed person looks like, it's a complete lie. And everything we've been taught and what businesses tell you and what schools tell you, or even the NHS tell you a person that's depressed looks like, a suicidal person looks like, is not true. It's usually the happiest person in the room. It's the one that you don't ask, are they all right, because you presume they are. And that was the reason why I wanted to make a doc and wanted to make the documentary. And I think to show that, not just in London where it's like a treadmill, but to show it all around the country. You know, it isn't based on like city and the pressures and all those types of things, it's unfortunately wired into men's brains. I wouldn't say that the documentary impacted my view on mental health. I would say that it impacted the need to change a lot of things that businesses and schools are doing currently, and parts of the NHS. And I think that it changed my view on things like understanding that in no way, shape or form should pressure be put onto someone that is suffering to come forward and talk. I think the thing that I always found frustrating when I was going through a period where I wanted to take my own life, I would see things that said, call this number, talk to this person, make sure, you just, and I'd hear businesses say, if you're feeling sad, talk. The last thing you want to do if you're in that situation is talk. You don't want to talk about it because it just makes you sad and you know what I mean? You don't want to. So what I realized is that the pressure does need to be put on friends. It does need to be put on family members because we're the ones that stay behind after they take their own life, and we're the ones that are going to be here. And I guess, the line that I used and is honest is, having lost Joe, I want other people to be able to be the hero to their friend that I know I wasn't to mine. And that's a fact, How can you classify yourself as someone's friend if you didn't actually know what was going on in their head and that they were feeling that sad that they could do that to themselves? And so it's just about imploring people to not let it get to that situation. I think as a radio DJ and a TV host, I have the best job in the planet. I love my job more than anything, my workplace, working for Capital, they've given me so many opportunities in my life to be able to just express what I want to do. And there are 4 hours of my life where I can guarantee you I am the happiest I could ever be. It's the same way that when, some guys go to a football stadium and they'll scream their heart out and cry for 4 hours. That's not necessarily them for the rest of the day, but that is within them. So, I know that person is there within me. But there are some days, and I'd say there's probably more down days than there are up days. Living in London, the times that I have to get up and go to work, it's not just getting up at 4:45 in the morning. It's then by 6 o'clock being a 14% of yourself. Do you know what I mean? That is tough, and it is really hard. But like I say, there's people that have different jobs to me, and they have different types of pressures that may seem worse or probably are worse. So I think as a personality, in quotes, the only reason it's difficult is because you don't want to come across rude on certain days. You get in a cab, and if you've got lots of stuff going on in your head, someone expects you to be someone that maybe you're just not that day. But I've still got a responsibility that when I do go on air, I'm honest, but still, positive. If I was to go back and kind of speak to my teenage self, it would be to look after your friends. Look after your friends. I honestly think that. I think, especially within schools, the kids don't talk to one another about that. And I think I dealt with a lot of anxiety issues when I was at school, and I never felt like I got the support of a school ever around that. I felt too much pressure. I think there's too much pressure on pupils in general, in test situations, etc. It's just that case of, everything will be all right, and the things you're worrying about will seem massive, but in reality, I always say to myself, no one cares. That's what I have to say to myself sometimes to calm down. The reality of the situation is, my problem is that big. And tomorrow is a new day. The piece of advice that I would give someone that is struggling is the acknowledgement that I have no idea what they're going through, firstly, because it could be anything. And, and that's really scary, because to that person it will seem like the biggest thing in the world, and it will seem like the most important problem there is to have. I guess the bit of advice I would have is trust that your friends are there for you. And trust that if it's not your friends, your friender, singular, or family members are there for you. And the second that you can feel like you can open up to it, then I would do that. And what I mean is look out for those opportunities. Look for those moments in a conversation where someone's asking you something, and that can help ease you in. You don't have to run to them and ask, and you don't have to run to that person and say what your problem is all at once. But next time they ask you how you are, take a breath, think about it, and try and answer honestly. I think that's the biggest thing that you can do.